Welcome back to another episode of Imagine Better, everybody. I'm your host, Mark Powers, and today, live in studio with me is Daron Powers. What a cool last name, by the way.
Boy, I like yours, too.
I'm telling you, I don't know. I mean, we're not even related, guys. But these awesome last names. You have the power of powers here.
The way I help people remember it is daring you to be powerful.
Ooh.
Daron Powers.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
I love it. So, you know, I when we spoke on the phone, I mentioned to you, I don't do any background of my guests. Now, the day of, I might peruse through their LinkedIn, or usually I'll peruse through quickly on their website. So I did that this morning, just a little bit, just so I have a couple little throw the line out there of content. And so I noticed, I loved your intro on the About Us, or the About Me page. And this, come from an everyday normal family, dysfunctional. Oh my God, isn't that the truth?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you didn't do the background check.
I know.
I might not be sitting here now.
Well, it didn't come through in time. I did get a notification say that it was stuck. Yeah. So something about, the prison break, I don't know what that was all about. No, I'm just kidding, everybody.
He's not kidding.
No. I was the one driving
kidding.
the pickup.
He's kidding. I'm just kidding you.
Gotta have fun too, Daron.
Yeah.
So dysfunctional upbringing, isn't that the normal America, I think?
It kind of is the normal, yeah. I mean,
it's sad but true.
I didn't know it was dysfunctional, not until I got educated. Then I found out, well, that's what happened to me.
Well, so you went, and again, everybody, I perused through Is About Us page today, because as you guys know, I like genuine, authentic conversations with my guests. But I did learn a little bit of snippet about you, so I just want to start with that. And then I think let's just tell the world who you are and give us a good, tell us about your journey and then what led you to sitting here today, right? Mm-hmm. Other than me, I reached out to you, hit my microphone. I've been doing that a lot lately. So, I want to say that you're a black belt in karate.
That's right.
I mean, you're a tall karate chopper here. I mean, that would be, wow.
Yeah, I studied Taekwondo, I studied Aikido, I studied Goshin Jitsu. Now I'm studying Tai Chi and Jikong.
Oh my goodness. Now talk about mindset.
Yeah.
And discipline.
Yeah. Well, when I was in third grade,
right.
I was playing on the monkey bars.
Okay.
Outside in grade school, and I had my best hand-me-down shirt on, and Ruben Nikitarov grabs hold of me and he rips the shirt. So I go home for lunch, which I normally didn't do, and my mom said, "Well, what happened to your shirt?" She said, I said, "Well, Ruben Nikitarov, I accidentally ripped it." He says, "Well, you go back and you beat that Ruben Nikitarov up." I went, whoa. She had always told me, turn the other cheek.
Right.
Don't get involved in this stuff. Don't fight back. Now, suddenly everything's going to turn around. So I go up to Ruben. I said, "Ruben, you ripped my shirt." My mom said, "I have to fight you." And Ruben goes, "Okay, sure." And I can remember that day. It was like 3:30. I wish it would never come. I couldn't wait for it to come in the past, but now I have to meet Ruben on the hill. And all I remember was being bloody when we were done, and Molly lived on the next street, putting her arm around me, consoling me all the way home. So I get home, and my mother and father, who are always busy doing stuff, are sitting in the living room waiting for me. I thought, this is interesting.
Yeah.
My mother must have told my father, what my new mission was. So so I thought, so I'm filled with blood. I got another hand-me-down shirt. It's got, I'm a mess, and they take one look at me and they start to laugh. So I run to my room, throw myself on the bed, and said, "This is never going to happen again. Someday I'm going to become a black belt."
Oh my goodness.
But I was always defending the rights of others and getting my ass whooped. So just before I went into the Air Force, I started studying Ishinryu karate, Japanese style. Then when I got in the Air Force, I studied Taekwondo and I studied Goshin Jitsu. And when I got out, I studied with Master Cell in Ann Arbor and got my black belt there. And on the way to getting the black belt, because the reason I wanted it, and I didn't understand this until later in life.
Okay.
But the reason I wanted this black belt was so I had control over my life. So I had a sense of confidence because I didn't feel safe in the world.
Right, right.
Well, I also play music. So at the time, I was doing a solo act, and I went into Dooley's downtown Ann Arbor, and all these football players from U of M were there. And I'm walking through this crowd, and by this time I'm teaching, but I'm only a brown belt. And I'm one step away from black belt. And I'm walking through this crowd, and for the first time in my life, I felt safe. I felt safe like I'd never felt safe before. And I realized I had achieved my goal. Then I got black belt, and I moved on to other styles.
Nice. Oh, that is awesome.
But, it's interesting how events in our lives shape our behaviors later.
Right. That I've never done that. I've taken one karate class. That was moons ago. I do kickboxing though, twice a week over at Gold's Gym. Yeah. Little plug for you, Don Larson. And it's a lot of fun. But I strength train 3 days a week, and then the other two. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday strength training. Tuesday, Thursdays I'm doing kickboxing. I love it. I mean, I don't do it to compete. It's purely just for format, tech or technique, and just staying in shape at 50 plus years old.
Absolutely.
So being active. But I love the fact that you studied all this stuff, because that, I think, helps get you to where you're at today. I mean, the confidence that you have, the discipline that you have, the what else am I missing here? But the
focus.
Thank you. The focus. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would be a huge one there. But walking through that bar at Dooley's in Ann Arbor, and you felt safe, that's because you had a new skill. Your mind and your body's almost like a weapon in some form that you could defend yourself.
Absolutely.
And that is brilliant.
Well, the key is safety in the world.
Sure.
When you don't feel safe, you acquire things that make you feel safe, and sometimes those things don't really make you safe. Correct. They're only external. Let's say a gun.
Right.
Now, I've shot automatic rifles in the Air Force, but I can't own enough guns to feel safe.
Right.
It's an internal job.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah, I would love to learn, but I don't have the discipline.
Well, now I study for Tai Chi and Qigong. Tai Chi is the basis of all martial arts.
Okay.
So I continue to study that. That's low impact. But then I study the Qigong for health benefits. It's interesting. During COVID, I felt... at one point, I was feeling something was up with my body. Maybe I had COVID or something, and I just started studying Tai Chi. I figured, okay, my business is not happening, so let me study Tai Chi. So my big screen, I pulled up some Tai Chi lessons, and I started studying. But I'm feeling this, maybe something's not right. Maybe I have COVID. So I went to ER. I went to urgent care, and they said, you get over to ER right now. Something's going on with your heart.
Oh.
So I get over to ER, and they go, oh, yeah, there's something going on. We're going to admit you right now. So I get admitted. They take all these tests, and they said, we need to keep you overnight. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm not staying overnight. I'm just not that guy.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, right or wrong, I ain't staying. I said, well, you better go see a cardiologist. Well, as soon as I got home, I started researching Tai Chi and the heart. And so I found a couple of doctors who were Tai Chi masters.
Right.
And they said, if you have something going on with your heart, start studying these particular moves. Well, I go to see a cardiologist. He puts me through tests. He says, I see some shadowing going on here. Maybe we better put you in outpatient. We'll run a camera up there. If we need, we'll put stents.
Right.
I said to the cardiologist, he probably thought I was off my rocker. I said, listen, I found some exercises for Tai Chi. I know it's going to sound crazy,
right?
But I'm going to do these exercises, 15 minutes a day for 30 days, and according to the Tai Chi masters, that if you have blocks, they will disappear. So I did it instead of 15 minutes a day, because I'm a little obsessive.
Yeah.
I did 30 minutes a day, and I did 2 months.
Oh, wow.
Well, I went for my second jab, the COVID shot, at the VA. because I'm a veteran, Air Force
Right.
veteran. So I have a...
Thank you, by the way.
You're welcome. I had a negative reaction, and they put me in emergency right away.
Oh, no.
So I go into emergency, and in comes the, this is all going to come together in a minute, I promise you. So in comes the nurse. She's the head nurse of the hospital, apparently a real find for the VA. They looked all over the United States to find her. She was a cardiologist nurse, a specialty. And I told her what I was doing. I told her this crazy idea about using Tai Chi and what the cardiologist told me. And she said, okay. She didn't doubt me. If she did, she was very good at hiding it. She says, I'm going to take you through another stress test, but I'm going to be there. We're going to make sure we get accurate pictures. So once again, I'm doing the specific 2 different Tai Chi moves. Instead of 30 days, 15 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, 2 months.
Okay.
So she gets me on the machines, and we go through the machines. And then about 2 weeks later, she says, I want to do your evaluation. So I go back to the VA in Detroit.
Yeah.
They're wonderful, wonderful people there. And she goes through my whole evaluation, and she said, Daron, she says, I don't know what you're doing. Everything is absolutely perfect. She says, I see no shadowing. I see no reason to run a camera up there. I see no reason to think about stents. I don't know what you're doing, but you need to keep doing it. Point of the story is both Tai Chi, but in particular, Qigong has health benefits. Now, whether I'm making this up or this is a misperception, it's my belief that what I was doing was actually making a difference.
Oh, nice. Now, so you was doing, so you don't do that anymore.
Oh, I still do it, yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I study with a fellow by the name of Dan Roney, who is also an 9th degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Oh, my goodness.
He studied with all the folks overseas who are masters of Qigong. And he runs a multi-million-dollar company, a really extraordinary man. Takes great care of his people. And so that I started studying Tai Chi with him. So I do it regularly, and we do it together oftentimes.
Interesting. Now I have to look into that. That's awesome. I've never said this on my show, but I take some blood thinners because I have AFib. I learned about that maybe 2 years ago. And AFib is just, your top valve and your bottom valve, they sometimes go out of sync. And if you get these like flutters or things in your heart, it's almost like a panic attack, but it can cause, it's risk for stroke. It's definitely risk for a heart attack. So I've been through I have a cardiologist. Excuse me. Everything's perfect. I pass every stress test, and they're like, you beat the treadmill time. No one's ever done that. I'm like, well, I run a lot and I work out a lot, but yeah, so now I just under control and I eat healthier. And so anyways, I never heard of that either. That's interesting.
There's an exercise that might be of value to you. I can't know for sure, but if you're saying that the heart is out of sync with what? The way that I understand, and maybe I'm doing this here, but with AFib, it's just that the valve, they don't flow. It doesn't, with the top and the lower valves, they go out of sync, and blood can kind of get risk of clogging. I see. Okay.
So what the blood thinner does is it keeps, obviously, the blood thin and lets it flow, and everything gets aligned. I haven't had an episode in quite some time now, thank goodness. But when they do, it just feels like you're overexerted or something. Like,
yes.
I
was wondering because there is an exercise that I teach all my clients I work with. I have people here in the United States, I have people in Europe, I have people in Canada, people in Mexico that I coach on a regular basis. And one of the things I try to teach them is they're in business, all of them are in business,
right.
But I'm also teaching self-care, because if you don't have wellness, if you don't have good relationships, if you're not properly focused, you're not going to do as well in your job as you can.
Right.
So one of the things I teach them is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. And as part of that is synchronizing. This is a different exercise. This is heart-mind. This is from the Heart Math Institute. They found out that this is a brain, your heart is a brain, your head is a brain, and your gut is a brain.
Okay,
but there is... So this is enough to take care of, right? Let alone this and this.
There's another one that he's not mentioning too.
Yeah, that one does have it does have a whole thought of itself, right? But what I have people do is, well, I'll give you a case in point. One of my clients, she calls and she says, she's an entrepreneur. She calls and she says, my son he's 19. He just lost his girlfriend. He's going crazy this morning. He's just throwing stuff around the kitchen. And so she calls me, real quick. Or she texted me and I said, quick, let's get on the phone. We get on the phone.
Yeah.
And I said, here's what I want you to do right now. Just put the phone up, put it on speakerphone. I want you to put your left hand on your heart and tap on your heart and then tap right between your eyes. Right there, okay? So just start tapping right there.
I'm going to try it.
Right, so as she's tapping, I'm talking with her, okay? And as she's tapping, and she's answering me, I can hear her voice starting to lower. Her voice gets lower.
Really?
And lower and lower. After 2 minutes of doing this, the stress has somehow lowered, okay? And
it is quite relaxing, actually.
It is. I felt it too all over my body.
Yeah.
So what that does is it puts your heart and your brain into coherence. They start to move together, right? So after about 2 minutes, her voice had lowered. She was calmer. She dealt with the situation. And then we talked a little bit later. She says, "It's amazing how something so simple." Like you like your interviews to be simple.
Yeah.
This is a very simple technique.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe that might help with the fib. I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
We're trying.
But I do know
That
this.
was very relaxing. It was interesting. Like, you just kind of, you feel here, but then all of a sudden it feels like it goes in sync.
Now, we talk about programming, I was working with a client.
This is in your coaching?
This is in coaching, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
So I generally, in coaching,
I was going to say, let's dive into some of this stuff. I want to know.
Well, they usually read all the books. I got Future Vision, and these two books are based upon a course I did for Ford Motor Company.
Okay.
Back in the early '90s, and it was way ahead of its time back then, and things are just now starting to catch up.
Hence the name Future Vision. Maybe.
That's right, Future Vision.
Well, yeah. So and then get to that, and then I'd like to have our audience understand what your coaching's all about, what these books are about, and how. Obviously in the description, everybody in this episode, I will make sure that we have all the links so you can get these books and join Daron's program and coaching, or reach out and see if they're even a fit. Right? I'm sure they have to be qualified to some degree. Maybe you don't.
I generally work with high functioning people.
Yeah.
I can't help everybody, and I don't pretend to help everybody. So
That's good.
I've had to turn certain people away. Companies hire me to work with their people, and there are some people that I can't work with because they're not a fit. They don't have the enough awareness to understand the importance of awareness.
Yeah.
They don't know what they don't know. They're not bad people. It's not their fault. But some people you can help, and some people you can't.
Isn't that the truth? And I think that's true with most coaching.
Right. So
I cut you off there.
No problems. Yeah. So I wrote these. I actually wrote the processes in these years ago when I was a Dale Carnegie instructor. I was experimenting on the side and doing research. I wanted to take people further than Dale Carnegie, which is an extraordinary program still today.
Then you must know Jo Bruce.
I know Jo Bruce.
She is. I love you, Jo. She just texted me this morning, wishing me happy birthday and stuff, and
happy birthday.
Well, thank you. Yeah, 55. And she's been in that seat, and she. Over the summer, I worked with her. She coached me on a lot of things to prepare me for some new steps in my journey. She's amazing. But when you said Dale Carnegie.
Nice. Well, I've always been, even when I was an instructor and a sales guy for the Carnegie courses.
Okay.
On the side, I was always experimenting and researching.
Nice.
That's my life. I experiment, I research, I coach, I keep
seeing
learning.
That theme.
And it's something, my father, I think about my father. We'd come to the dinner table at 4:15, Monday through Friday, and the first thing he would ask, all right, what'd you learn today? You got to learn something new every day. Think. You've got to think. And my entire life is based upon what did I learn today?
Daron starts doing this.
Yeah, exactly. So, so while I was a Carnegie instructor, I had developed this program. I brought in some executives from the automotive companies, and Ford said, we want this for all our people. And so that went pretty well. Until one day, this was about a year into the program, because I left Carnegie's and I went over to Ford, and somebody called and said, yeah, well, the PPD, Personal Professional Development at Ford Motor Company, they're not supporting the program anymore. I said, what are you talking about? So I called them up and they said, yeah, we were going to call you. The
yeah.
the economy is like, it was going into a dip, and we got to get rid of anything that we think is extraneous. And so, okay.
Wow.
So I had just hired a new person. She's sitting in the office, and I get the call, and so I'm like, my heart sinks to my feet, because I put all my eggs in this basket. Mm-hmm. I was making a very good living with Carnegie, and this thing was going, and it was just really taking off and doing well. And now I'm hiring more people. I got other instructors, and these people had to be really specialized. They had to know more than they did more than the regular trainer, because I was going into areas of neuroplasticity. This is way ahead of what we're doing today, which is what's common today. I was just starting to teach people back then. So I get this bad news, and I have this new person, and I immediately, so Ford Motor drops us. Oh my God, what are we going to do, right?
Right.
So my heart sinks to my feet. And I'm thinking about W. Clement Stone. He wrote a book called From Failure, How I Erased Myself from Failure to Success. And he says, have you read that?
No, but I've heard of this book. No, proceed. I want to hear, but no, I've never read it. No.
So he said, when things go wrong, you lose a client, something goes bad, he says, you got to say, this is great. This is the best thing that ever happened to me, and you've got to change your point of view immediately, right? So, and it reminded me of another story up in Wisconsin. There was a young guy, he was a junior in high school, and the star quarterback. And he worked in a meat packing plant. Try saying that. Meat packing plant. There
you go.
I finally got it. So he gets his arm caught in a machine.
Oh, no.
And it takes off his arm. His father shows up at the hospital, and he says, son, look, you got 15 seconds right now to decide either this is going to be something that you are going to profit from, or the worst thing in your life and screw up the rest of your life. Decide right now. So the young man decided, okay, I'm going to make the best of this. No matter what happens, this is it. This is my life now. He learned to throw with his left arm, and he joined the team. He joined the team as a senior, playing football as their quarterback.
Wow.
So I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about these stories, right? All this is going through my head at lightning speed. My new person is sitting out there, and I jump up from the desk and I go, this is fantastic. Ford Motor just dropped our program. Can you believe this? And I'm running around the desk like a crazy man. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to us. I cannot believe our good fortune,
She's looking at you going, what the hell are you talking about?
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, I shifted over to public programs. I would start doing public programs in hotels, future vision programs. And somebody shows up very shortly after that, and he says, Pulte Homes, they are one of Michigan's, considered at the time, one of Michigan's not so good builders.
Yeah.
A lot of value, but kind of cheap. So Bill Pulte was just a high school graduate. He built something pretty amazing.
Yeah.
He had 300 people, 22 subdivisions, 300 people, let everybody go, kept one person, and then said, I'm going to redo this, and he surrounded himself with smart people, 6 really smart people. I got a chance to meet one of those smart people. And within 1 hour, we had a contract. I had a contract to do business. Well, that led to a 12-year relationship with Pulte Homes over the years.
Oh, nice.
And I wrote 3 programs that that transformed the culture. And it was already beginning to show signs of life, great life. But this, myself and Scott Saddam, who was the VP, we worked on this together. And after about 12 years, by the time I left that project, they had dominated J.D. Power in 31 markets and became an extraordinary company. And where was I going with this? So this was after I lost the Ford Motor account. Then I get a call from another friend who I helped start his business. It was called Yes, a Positive Network.
Okay.
And he started from zero, eventually grew it into something that reached over 1 million people in 42 countries. And he calls me one day and he says, Daron, he says, I just got a call from BI Worldwide in Minneapolis, and they have the GM account, and GM is looking for a person with a very particular set of skills. So I went and I met with them, and GM liked me. And so I started writing and producing for them. I produced programs that would go into their dealerships, help them with sales, marketing, with management, leadership, team building, that sort of thing. And it worked out so well that BI Worldwide said, we'd like you to come to our international account. We'd like you to come into our Toyota. We'd like you to come into our H&R Block. And I was able to really influence in a really positive way so many of these different cultures. And by the way, I did really well financially. In fact, between the Ford and the BI, I made more money than I ever thought I would make. That was not the point. Money was not the point. It's never the point for me. It's always about what I can learn and what I can grow and what I can share. But the point of the story is that getting up from that desk and having Ford drop that account was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me because of the numbers of people that I was able to help internationally. And I calculated about over 400,000 in the last few decades.
Oh my goodness, congrats.
This is like one-on-one type stuff.
Now, through that process, is that where the video side of your world came into play?
Oh no.
Or is that going down a different path right now?
Well, actually, when the Pulte project wrapped up, I had got sucked back into that business big time. The housing industry really grew by leaps and bounds, and so my calendar was just filled. I was going all over the United States with different sorts of builders, Pulte, Lennar, Toll Brothers, and putting on programs. And to change the culture or help to improve the culture. So when everything slowed down, I decided to get off the road and start a business. So I started a marketing business.
There you go.
And and it was going like gangbusters. It took off, boom, right out of the gate. But my overhead was pretty high. So I thought, let me go ahead and get let me, I could normally get any amount of money I wanted from a bank. I never ever had a problem. So I thought, well, I would go to my bank and say, hey, look, what can we do Obama had a program. Okay. I thought, what could go wrong here, right? So, so I got into that program. I qualified. Had plenty of money, lots of equity, great credit rating, got into the program, and after 45 days, you just simply dot the I's, cross the T's, and I'm a very detailed kind of guy. I keep notes, and they said, I said, can we lower the payment now, get into the program? I said, well, we got our investors still, who's your investor? We can't tell you. What's going on here? 16 months later, I found out they kicked me off the program at month 9, and that I said, why'd you kick me off the program? They said, well, they're cashing my checks, by the way. Well, the rules changed. I said, what rules? Well, we don't know. Call this number. Call the number. They didn't know what rules changed. I eventually had to take these guys to court.
Oh my goodness.
And because they wanted my home. They literally foreclosed on my home.
Oh, no way.
Wrongfully. And then they auctioned it off illegally.
What?
I couldn't get an attorney that I could work with because they said, look, Daron, they're more powerful, they're stronger than you, they can outlast you, they have more money, they're going to take your home. Irrespective of what the reason was. We never knew what the reason was up to that point. So I hired a coach. I hired a foreclosure coach that all attorneys go to. And he's not an attorney himself. He put me on to Eva Jo Sparks out of Oklahoma, who does forensic audits for the for this bank and for the FBI. She got all my information. She says, Daron, you didn't do anything wrong. She says, there's a problem deep in your mortgage. And so she showed me where that was at. I brought in a few more people. We went to court, and because they kept fighting me all the way, they kept fighting me. Finally, when they realized that I knew what was going on, they said, okay, we'll settle. So they got us our house back, although we always stayed in it. We took care of the folks who bought the home off the auction, got the IRS to give them their money back because they cashed out some of their investments at a penalty. So I was able to right that wrong. It took me 6 years. I learned a lot about it. And what got me through that is a lot of what I write about in these books. Because what I had developed since the time of the Air Force, I'd started building my mental fitness. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize it then, but that's what I was doing. I was studying how to make my mind as strong and my body as strong as I possibly could. Everything I did leading up to that incident with the bank had prepared me for that incident with the bank, because I learned how to focus. I learned how to get the stress down. I use something called EFT, which is a whole other process.
Yep.
And I was able to think through this and solve this problem in a way that was able to bring the banks to justice. And by the way, a lot of people don't realize the media had put the onus for the bank failures on the homeowners.
Oh, really?
It was not the homeowners. What I discovered was there's a book my coach suggested I read called The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Jekyll Island?
Jekyll Island.
Creature from Jekyll Island.
1913 is when we started taxing people, and these bankers came together, the J.P. Morgans, the Rothschilds and all, and they set up the system that we have today, which is very bank-oriented. And when I discovered the underbelly of the bank, I was crestfallen, because I believed in the system. I believed in the banks.
God.
And what I discovered was that these banks were, unfortunately, and if you're a banker, I realize you may not understand what's going on in the underbelly. I do, because I had to defend myself. But it's I would not recommend doing what I did. To anybody.
I can't believe you did what you did. I mean, talk about audacity. Talk about, I can only imagine the amount of stress and anxiety going through all this, but the time involved, but the learning. Look what came out.
Well, because I'm building a business at the same time, too.
Sure.
So I wrote about that. I wrote about that in a very abbreviated story in this book as one of the parts, and I show how the techniques I use to keep myself focused, to keep stress lowered, and to keep myself operating at a very high level.
So, The Miracle of Freedom. This is the draft copy. When will this be available?
It's ready.
It's ready.
It's ready, yeah.
And this is, walk us through, you've been probably talking about some of the stuff that's in here, obviously.
Yes.
But what are some of the takeaways you think that once people start reading this, what are a few of the takeaways that we'll get out of that?
Yeah, so one of the things that's important is that to the extent that something bothers you, you're not free. If somebody cuts you off in traffic and you're pissed off, you come to work and you give that to somebody, you're not free. If you're a teenager and somebody takes your phone away from you and you go into a rage, you're not free.
Right.
If somebody says something on the news that you don't like, a lot of people didn't like the way the last election turned out.
Right.
If you're at the effect of that, you're not free. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, how do you get yourself free? Because we live, in an ostensibly free country. Right? Free markets, so to speak. Uh-huh. At least that's the way it's explained.
Right.
But in reality, we don't live in a free society.
I agree. I think a lot of us, and at times myself, I find myself doing this, but we hold ourselves hostage in a lot of different ways, right? The way we think. So to your point, somebody might cut you off, somebody gets angry, right?
Right.
You have a choice in that matter. Being aware, you could just say, you know what? I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to let that affect my day.
Right.
So I think that's what you're saying, is that you're not free, because if you did explode and that offset your day, right? Is that kind of what you're alluding to?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or offsets your life.
Or, offset your life.
Because I think the key, particularly in today's society, it's not, today is not like it was when I came up. In my 30s, we represented at that time about 21% of the wealth in our 30s. Today, it's about somewhere in the range of 4%. The 30-year-olds have about 4% of the wealth. The wealth has moved since the 1970s, late 70s.
Yep.
It used to be right after the war, as productivity went up, because Americans worked hard, we are all hard workers, so did our pay. But then about the late 70s, new regime came in, presidency, new way of thinking. Milton Friedman, who is, he likes to privatize everything.
Privatize,
right?
okay.
Yeah. He had a new way to run America, and from that point forward, our wages began to flatten out, even though our productivity is going up. And as a result of that, where the minimum wage should be somewhere in the range of $23 to $25 today, because of those policies, it's still $7.25.
Isn't that something?
So you don't really have the freedom, the freedom to same buying power we had back then, nor the same. As a matter of fact, the middle class represented about. This was in the late 70s, about 65% of the population. Today, it's 43%.
Okay.
So my idea is, okay, look, we can't control what's happening out there in the economy. We can't control the political policies that are being foisted upon us. But what we can control is ourselves. We can learn to control how we think, how we perceive. And this entire series, I call it the Future Vision series, is based upon very simple ways to get a hold of who we are and where we want to go.
Okay.
Remember the lady I talked about who did the little tapping here like this? She said she's a very smart lady. She's been through bazillions of seminars. She's a communication specialist. She really is very, very smart. She says to me, Daron, I've been through all sorts of therapies, through all sorts of people. And she says, and for the first time, we actually addressed something that was bothering me, that got me over the relationship hurdles. She had a recent divorce. It got me on track with relationships and focused. And she said, not only did we were able to overcome the inner traumas, but you gave me a path forward. And that's what I try to do.
That's powerful.
Is help to resolve what's going on internally and then help people to lay a path forward. Right. She got her dream job. She got her dream job after that. She got the relationship that would work for her, that she's still in it today.
Very nice.
And these things, if we can't control the things going on around us, how about trying to focus on what we can do with the resources we have within us?
Isn't that the truth right there? So I just had this conversation with somebody yesterday about, a friend of mine, about that very thing. It's like, and I allow myself, a lot of times I allow myself to get all worked up over things that are out of my control. And then I get my Zen moment, if you will. I start to think, I get clarity. I'm like, I can't focus on it anymore. I need to be aware, catch it, and then shift my mindset back to the things I'm in control of, right? So I can choose to be happy today. Somebody that could offset your day, could, my daughter this morning. She was
How old's your daughter?
She's 10, a little cranky one this morning.
Uh-oh.
And it could have been very easy for me to just kind of go a different route today mentally, because she was challenging. But I chose to not let that get to me. Instead, I tried to pep talk her. That didn't help. She just went to school all frustrated. And I had to just kind of calm myself down. But that's the mindset that we have to try to achieve. But it's not easy all the time. And if we're not aware and be able to quickly make that decision, right? The person's arm, you have to make the decision right now to make that change. I had to do that this morning. And all of us, how many people go through their days having those split-second decisions? That's going to affect your day, affect your life, whatever it may be, right?
Right.
I mean,
you talk about and I think of it as mental fitness. My daughters were picking up on this.
I love that mental fitness. I was going to circle back to that, but go ahead.
Well, my both my former wife and I were Dale Carnegie instructors. So we tried to really create a really positive and uplifting home for our two daughters at the time.
Right.
And I remember she was about 8 years old, Erin, and we had a big party. It was some sort of a birthday party or something. And Erin went off, and she was not being good. So I said, Erin, I would like you to go to your room right now and take some time out. And of course, she doesn't want to be separated from all her friends, right?
Right.
So she looks at me, she goes, Dad, I'll go to my room, but I want you to know that in my mind, I'm still out here.
Oh my goodness! No, that's good. I like that. I can't. I mean, wow! You talk about a powerhouse. Then both you and your ex-wife,
Yes.
former wife, yeah. Both Dale Carnegie instructors, and I mean that's a house full right there. Just that's a powerhouse.
Yes.
A Powers house.
A Powers house. I love it. I love it. Daring us all to be powerful.
That's right. So, when someone's looking, I mean, if they approach you and they're looking for some kind of coaching, I mean, what are some of the things you look for in an individual before you accept them as a client?
Well, they have to have a desire to want to be better.
Isn't that the truth?
One of the clients, he's got a company.
I mean, there's no red button you can just press and it's all
easy,
fixed.
Easy,
It's easy button.
Boom, easy button, right. I have a client who has a company, Dover Services, and he has me work with his people.
Okay.
And early on, he's also my Qigong instructor.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Dan Roney. And,
you mentioned him.
Yes, right. And after classes, he was teaching them in Dearborn. This was during COVID. That's when I actually rehooked up with him because he was on the board when I tested for black belt years earlier. And now, fast forward, and we meet up again years later, decades later, and we would meet after the class. And one of the things we both agreed with is, as men, we want to be the best men we possibly can be.
Right.
And so when he sends his people to me, it's because he wants them to be the best people they want to be. Now, if I can't help them, if they don't really want to be better men and women,
right,
I can't help them. So there has to be, you have to bring something to the table.
Yeah.
And you have to want to be a better person on some level. In this book, I talk about two kind of mindsets. One is a fixed mindset, and one is a growth mindset. One isn't better than the other.
Right.
It just produces a different result. So a fixed mindset's not so comfortable with change. I like things to be the same, familiar, right? And that's not a bad thing.
No.
I like things in certain ways to be, I want my car to work when I when I head to the store. I don't think about it. It's a habit, right? I don't need to change that. Although occasionally it's fun to go a different way.
Right.
I remember when I was living in Ann Arbor, I would take the kids. They went to Rudolph Steiner School, and we had two ways to go in Ann Arbor. One was along the river, and one was through the city traffic.
Right.
City traffic was about 1 minute faster. Okay. And so my former wife and I would go around in circles and say, I'm going to take the scenic route. And she'd go, no, why? Because it's faster to go the other way. I go, but life isn't about how quickly you can get there. It's about the journey. It's about enjoying yourself or finding a way to be in the present moment, because that's where the power is. That's where the well-being is. That's where the performance is. That's where rich relationships exist in the moment.
I do agree with that.
So the two different mindsets I explain in the book about them and the things that you should start thinking about.
This book or out of these?
Well, they all lead to the same
cover
direction, but this one deals specifically with.
Interesting. Okay.
So in fact, there's three concepts in this book. When I was in The Miracle of Freedom, when I was studying Dr. Herbert Benson, he was the chief of staff. Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Okay.
And he had come up with this idea that, in his research, evidence-based studies, that the mind could grow at age 90.
Wow.
Could grow at age 90 in size and weight, just like age 9, if three things were present. And so those three things I had been studying my entire life.
And they're in the book.
Yeah, they're in the book.
Got to get the book to learn about the three things, you guys. Unless you want to share them.
Well, I could share parts of it, but here's the thing. You know, because we're losing brain cells, but we also have an ability to create synaptic connections, new neural pathways. And this book is about, in part one, I talk about direction, and then the mind and how it works, and how I was able to, I was in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. And in the Air Force, in my spare time, I worked in the civil engineering squadron. I worked with civilians, and we worked on runway layouts and road layouts, and I did surveying for that. And in my spare time, I could, do whatever I wanted to do. So I would take college classes, and I discovered something about college. When I took classes, I was getting good grades. Now, before that, before I went in the Air Force, I went to Lawrence Tech, and unfortunately, I was the bottom of the class that made the upper half possible. I was not a great student.
That's right. I read that you, when the first attempt in college, you failed
miserably, and I thought
it wasn't until the Air Force that you finally.
I never thought I would amount to anything. I had so drilled into me that without an education, you could not be anybody.
Right.
And that was my guiding light, so to speak. And I couldn't make heads nor tails. Age 19, I was a depressed person. I hated myself. I hated work. I could barely function. And that's when I decided, I got to rebuild myself. Let me do something for my country. My dad did, his brothers, their sons, my mother's brothers, their sons. It's a military family, so I thought, it's my time to serve. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to give them me. And I'm going to do whatever they ask me to do. I'm going to rebuild myself, and I'm going to help this country. And that was a turning point. So,
love it. Love it.
So I'm taking a class, and I'm getting these good grades, and I'm going, what is wrong with this picture? I was in the wrong environment.
Yes.
Which is also another key part of the three. Your environment, looking at your environment and seeing how it can either enrich your life at work, at home, socially, or how it can impoverish and keep you down. And so I try to bring awareness so that people can, I ask a lot of questions in there so people can inspect their lives. Well, there was one lady, she works for Positive Intelligence. I'm also a coach for Positive Intelligence, which comes out of Stanford. It's over 1 million people been through this program, and I'm a coach for that system also. And I was getting ready to put a proposal together, so I'm working with a company, and I meet this lady who her name is Grace, same as my daughter. And she said, oh, I see you write books. And I said, yeah, I'm just finishing up The Miracle of Freedom. She says, well, could I read it? I said, yeah, absolutely. So I sent her a PDF copy of it. She reads the book, and she lived in New York, and she's now in Las Vegas. She's trying to get her brother to come out and see her for 5 years. He just won't come, okay? And she reads the book, and she says, I realize now how my environment has shaped and molded me and the things I need to do, because I'm always taking a back seat. But now after reading the book, I decided I want to take a little bit step forward. And so there's a big webinar coming up, business webinar, which I was also on. She was there. And,
nice.
And there's a webinar coming up. She said, I'd like to have these little gold earrings for that webinar as I prepare myself, how I want to look, how I want to feel. She's following the advice of the book. Very nice. So we talk on the phone, and I had a Zoom meeting, and she says, interesting, after I read the book and I'm applying the principles, one day I get a call from my brother. And suddenly, he's coming out to see me.
Wow.
I had been visualizing this now for 2 months. And just out of the clear blue. And so I rearranged my schedule, and he comes out, and he gives me just a little package like this. And I open up the package, and it's the exact earrings I had been visualizing that I wanted for that webinar.
Oh my goodness. And she's never said anything to him?
Never said anything.
Wow.
At all. Right.
Wow.
So, it's all happening here, the key, and I wish these kinds of things would be taught in high school or college.
You're not kidding.
We need these. These are basic life skills, but they're not necessarily, people think it's kind of weird in some cases.
Right.
So that's why I can only work with certain people who are already forward thinking. If they're high achievers, great. We go to the next level.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting because I think a lot of people, and I was one of them, 2 years ago, I finally stepped out and said, I am going to find help. Because everyone on this show that hears my episodes, I try to talk a little bit about it, but like for 5 years, I fought a very dark depression, and nobody would know it. You would never. I could be sitting here right now. We could be having a great time. I'd smile, but inside there was darkness, and I was not happy. No joy in my life. It was a really hard time in my life. So instead of and then alcohol. And I heard a lot of people verbally, just like, words that are just like daggers. I heard some really close people that meant a lot to me in my life. But my whole point of bringing this up is that when we decide to make change, sometimes you got to dig deep in your soul, right? So I talk about change and I talk about transformational change a lot. Change is very surface level, right? I'm gonna, maybe a couple weeks somebody decides they're gonna go to the gym or something, and although that's change, it's in their brain it's not sustainable because they're not embracing it as a lifestyle and a commitment. Right. Where transformational change, you could be just so sick and tired of something, or trauma happened, or something in your life, and it's forcing you to dig deep and learn who you are. And you're going to rip your guts out to find that out. For me, there was therapy and writing, which is, me, I started writing my second book, and I don't know when it's going to come out. I'm still pouring out tears of everything in these pages to make sense out of what I've been going through. So, and that's really kind of how this show came about. Like, imagine better. I kept thinking, like, man, if life was just better. Imagine it would be a better thing.
I love the title.
Thank you.
Imagine better.
Yeah.
I'm talking with a woman last week, Sandra. She's in Canada, and she's worried about her daughter. She's a high performer. She was a former, had her own business, and then she left that, and now she's working for my client. And her daughter's daughter has a sickness, and so she's worrying now about her daughter and how she's handling that whole situation. Okay. And she said, it wakes me up in the middle of the night. I worry about it. I wake up in the morning and I'm worrying about it. She says, and through the day, I know it's in the back of my mind and it's worrying me. And we've been working together. She had 7 or 8 sessions up to that point in time. Right. And I said, so let me ask you a question. When you wake up in the morning, what is the first thing you think about? She said, oh my God, I worry about my daughter. I said, oh, okay. You see, in my experience, if we don't have a future vision in our mind of what we want our life to be for that day, for that week, for that month, for that year. Right now I'm working on the next 10 years. I'm laying that out, my own future vision. If we don't have that, then we generally wake to our problems. I'm the classic case. Okay. And that, in my darkest days, all I thought were about my problems when I wake up. I didn't know any better. I didn't know any other way. Yeah. And so, likely you have come out of whatever you've been in. I have coaches. I go to see coaches. Yeah, I will always, for my entire life, I'm a huge believer that you can't, you really are not served best by trying to do it all yourself. Nope. There are so many wise people, and the right person will show up if you ask. Right. But you have to ask. I agree with that. And, that circle, right, that environment that you mentioned earlier, that includes individuals like yourself that help. For me, this show has introduced me to some amazing people like yourself. And, I consider every guest that's been on this show, my new circle, because I'm constantly learning from them. Now I'm going to be stalking you on the internet, seeing where your book's at, and where you're speaking, and then some of these individuals have become good friends of mine over the last. I just started this show in April, so nice. And it's growing. It's doing a lot of I don't know what it's going to be when it grows up. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm not trying to force this into a lot, but future vision. What's the future vision of Imagine Better, guys? And the miracle of freedom. So
I mean, this is an awesome topic. I love your energy. I can't believe you have time to. I mean, you are like a professor of life, a philosopher.
I like that. Can I adopt that?
It's yours.
I steal that?
It's yours. Yeah. Hashtag trademark, whatever now. Professor of life.
I like that.
So I don't know where I come up with.
Well, I know in the book I try to let people know. Look, I'm not an I'm not an ivory tower. I'm not an academic kind of guy. I write very casually, very informally. Right. I tell lots of stories so that the ideas stick, and I'm very practical. Try to eliminate anything that's not essential to help a person think about their life and what they can do that's within their control to make a difference on their job, to make a difference in their relationship at home and on the job, and socially, as well as their well-being and health. So interesting. So the lady I talked about who was worried about her daughter.
Yes.
So I said, let's talk about why you're worried. And we make a list of all the reasons why she's worried, okay?
Right.
And this is kind of my typical process. And these are the obstacles to having well-being about your daughter, to having pleasant thoughts, okay? Right. And we go through it, and then I tap. I do something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. It's something that I learned while I was fighting that big bank. And it helped me to regulate my body and my mind. And it's kind of an ancient Chinese acupressure mixed with modern psychology, neuropsychology.
Right.
And it works very fast. And it's profound. It's absolutely profound, and it works really. So I work with her on this. After we go through the process, you're tapping different points of the body, right? Your meridians, and it releases. If you combine that with very specific thoughts, it releases things and gets the energy moving in your body. So it's 5 minutes later, and already she said, "Oh my God, it's not even an issue. I'm not worried about her. I get it. And
oh my.
And change and transformation can be that fast.
Wow. My cousin Shalina is going to love this. And Shalina, you watch all my episodes. So I know you're going to be looking into this now. So I want your input on this. I keep looking over there. Hey. But you're going to have to check this out. So she will. She's so into all this stuff. She loves it.
So for people like that.
But that's interesting.
She'll love it. I was rehearsing with a friend. I play music too. Okay. And I was rehearsing with a friend. I get a call from her mom, my former wife. And she says, "Oh my God, Grace, she's going to Wayne State." And she got the jabs. Okay. And the jabs sent her off. And she was not doing well. And I had to pull her out of college. She only had a few classes left. We pulled her out. And she's now working over Plum Market in Detroit. And she's doing much better today. But she couldn't focus. And so I called my daughter and I says, "I'm going to teach you something tonight, EFT. As soon as I get home." So it's about 11:30 at night. We get on a Zoom meeting, and I teach her the ideas.
Yes.
Find out what's in her way. And we go through this process. I spend about 15 minutes with her. And after I take her through the process, she goes, "Dad, can we get off the phone?" I said, "Why?" She said, "I got to get my work done." She couldn't focus. Suddenly she's focusing. So this is about 3 months later, and they come by to visit her mom and her. And I hear them in the house. I'm on the back deck, and I'm sweeping or something. I hear them going at it. And Grace, until she gets food in her sometimes, she can be a challenge. She can be challenging, you know. And so her mom's trying to get her to eat, and I know she's in pain because of the jab and all the stuff, you know.
Right.
And so I had enough. So I went inside. I went inside the house, and I said, "Okay, Grace, give me your hand." And I said, "We're going to do some EFT." She goes, "Dad, that stuff doesn't work." I said, "Okay, even though this stuff doesn't work," so I joined her. When I studied Aikido is the way of harmony. And in harmony, when you're doing martial art, you're not necessarily butting up against people. The energy comes at you, and you take the energy and you redirect it. Right? Ooh. It's an Aikido approach. So I take her hand, and she says, "Dad, that stuff doesn't work." So we start tapping. We go through the process. Now, had you been there 5 minutes earlier, stood at the door and watched what was going on, you go, "This crazy house." this crazy house.
What's going on in here?
You know? You can smell some food going, but you know, nobody's eating, and it's nuts. 5 minutes later, so I walk in the house, grab her by the hand, and says, "We're going to tap." And so she goes along with me. And we tap through the points.
Yeah.
Within 1 minute of that being done, maybe 2 minutes, we're sitting down. If you had now walked back into the house, you would have saw 3 of us sitting down,
Yep.
calmly eating, playing cards, as if nothing happened. As if nothing happened. Transformation does not have to take years. Right. It can happen in minutes if you've got the right processes, if you've got the right techniques, and if you've got a coach that's compassionate and caring and wants you.
I mean, somebody with like a lot of stress and anxiety in life with a desire to overcome that, this would be perfect.
Even addictions. I had one guy, he found me on Facebook, and he said, I want to deal with you. He said, I have a lot of stress. He said, I got my own business. He says, and I can hardly deal with my wife. She wants me to earn more money, and I have kids, and they, I can only take 20 minutes of these kids. I'm so stressed. I can't sleep at home. I have to sleep in my office. I go to the casino.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
So that I can relax and enjoy myself and try to relieve myself. And of course, he got a pile of money invested in his casinos because he doesn't always win.
Right.
And that's adding to the stress. He says, I'm addicted. I said, dude, first of all, here's what you need to know about addiction. There's a lot of people that have that label. There's people in prisons that have that label.
Right.
I said, we throw people in jail. We look down on people who are addicted. I said, the thing about addiction that I have learned in my studies and research is that addiction is simply the desire to solve a problem.
Say that again.
Addiction is a desire, it's habits and behaviors that become habits and behaviors, but it's an attempt to solve a problem.
That's interesting. I've never heard anyone put it.
Generally, it's emotional.
Right.
And once he understood that, it just, boom, things went off in his mind. He says, Daron, I have worked with psychologists, I've worked with therapists, I've worked with other coaches. He says, in this last 20 minutes, he says, I got more from you than I did all of them for all those years. Well, thank you. I do appreciate that.
Right.
And what's most important here is that you get the healing that you need.
Yeah.
So we worked through the EFT, the Emotional Freedom Technique, gave him some understanding about what addiction is and how it works. 4 weeks, it was 1 month he worked with me, and the 4th session he comes back, he said, I got nothing for you. I said, what do you mean? He said, man, things are going great. I said, what are you talking about? He said, instead of going to the casino, I now have a strategy to deal with it. With what was my addiction.
Right.
I don't need to go anymore. He said, I can spend up to 2-3 hours with my kids. My wife is not nagging me anymore. He said, I've got my life back.
That is
with
awesome.
a little understanding, a little insight, and a process. And in 3 weeks, literally 3 weeks, his life is transformed. He's back on track with his business. He's able to handle the stressful deals that he's in every day.
Yeah.
It's possible. That's all I'm saying.
Just have to
It's
repivot,
possible to transform your life in a very short period of time with the right tools and the right systems and a desire to want to do something.
That is awesome. Well, there you guys have it. I mean, what an episode. Daron, thank you. This has been an absolute honor to have you here today and learning about your journey and how you're helping transform people's lives. And I can't wait to share everything and get. I want to. So where can I get the book? Because I didn't know that this was out yet. I didn't. See
Amazon.com.
Go to Amazon.com. So the link's probably on your Future Vision website.
Yes, actually, if you go to DaronPowers.com, it'll take you to all my resources. It's DARON, Daron. Powers.com. As you go there, it'll take you wherever you need to go for my books, for my coaching, for my background. But this is also available in an audiobook. And I love audiobooks because when my hands and my eyes are busy doing other stuff, I love to listen, whether I'm cleaning or driving, and it turned out really well.
You did that yourself. I think I remember
myself.
now you telling me that.
Yes, yeah.
That's great, because you do have a radio voice. Because you used to. We don't have time to get into it now, but you had a radio show.
That's right. Yeah.
Back in the day. So I remember talking to him on the phone when probably about a week ago, I think it was, and he had that hey, whatever that little pillow talk sound,
That's right.
So. Fighting a little something here.
So this is available as an audiobook. This one is also available as an audiobook, but I recommend getting the book because it really breaks down the techniques I talked about for EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. And this particular one is the workshop version in that it expands this one, but it gives you places to write out your plan.
Oh, I like that.
So the way it works together, I ended up, during COVID, I wrote this one. Which has filled with stories and ideas. Then I wrote the workbook, right? And then I realized, that was these two are for people who are ready to make a change right now, but not everybody's ready to make a change. That's where this book comes in. So I went ass backwards, sorry.
No, that's...
So this is the first book, right? Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you did go ass backwards.
I did, yes I did.
But I just flipped this open, and real quick, I like this part. It says, areas to consider for your dream list. And he gives some examples: health, wellness, family, relationships, community, church, etc., hobbies. My dream list. Then you put today's date, and then it says start your timer, 10, 15, or 20 minutes, and begin. And now it's forcing you to think, write it out, get it out of here, put it on paper. Because, an idea is just, if it's in your head, it's just an idea. If it's a dream, you have to execute. And this helps get to that activate level.
Right. That's exactly right.
I can go to a seminar all the time and get motivated.
Right.
Motivation isn't sustainable.
That's right.
You have to go from motivate to activate. And I think that's the key ingredient: awareness, taking what we learn, embracing it, changing our environment. And instead of saying, hey, I love motivation, I love motivation too, but I like activation better because that's where I see results.
Right, and so most seminars you go to, and I love seminars, I love to go to them, they're about 25% effective. Now, what I've added into the mix is something called positive intelligence. It's based upon Shirzad Shamin's book, Positive Intelligence, and he has a whole system. And the idea is that you strengthen your mental fitness.
Right.
And by being able to retrain your brain, that is, my computer, I often update the operating system.
Right.
And I do that so everything runs smoother, okay?
Right.
And because different things start to fall in, apps that create different pressure and stresses on the system, so you update the system. The mind is the same way.
Yeah.
So I'm running a group, it'll be finishing up next week. It's a positive intelligence group, and I have people in there, forward-thinking people, and what they do is they get, in this program, they get an app on their phone that keeps them on track throughout the day with three different what's the word? three different challenges. Okay. For like 2 minutes. It's
easy
just
to
enough to get you to be present in the moment and see your life differently. And so it builds the mental muscle. This, in my coaching, goes for the deeper stuff to clear that up. But we still need the other kind of training for mental fitness. And I predict that this type of training will be the way of the future, maybe 20, 30 years from now, because we're in a mental health crisis.
Huh. Yes, and I'm glad you just said that, because I've been saying all along, we as a country need to take mental health more serious and provide resources around that. And mental health's not a sickness, it is. But, it could be stress, anxiety. It could just be a lot of these things that just make our minds just go, right? But learning how to deal with that through programs like yours, Daron, and coaching and giving people that awareness and the ability. Because a lot of people, I think, walk around aimlessly trying to go, I don't know what else to do, but I've got this. I can do this on my own. I don't need Daron's help, right?
Right.
When in reality, yes, you do, right? Because even the greatest leaders have coaches.
That's right.
Look at all of our athletes have coaches. So it's why don't just everyday common people have coaches to I guess not everybody needs one. I don't know. I would beg to differ. I love having coaches. I love my therapist. I mean, these are things that make me more energized, more aware. I'm a better human being because of it.
Absolutely. Well, you have physical fitness. You have financial fitness.
Yeah.
Why not mental fitness?
See, I don't think I've heard that phrase, mental fitness, before. I might have, but I'm hearing it today, and I'm thinking, man, I like that.
Yeah.
So, and that makes so much sense. Exercise the mind.
Well, having done those types of things, I'm at a point in my life right now where I have never been as consistently happy, feeling bodily harmony. I don't take any drugs, no pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
I'm in great shape, but I also know maybe I've got good genes, possibly, but I also know that it's not an accident. I know everything I've been doing over these years, and that's why I try to share it in these books and in my coaching, try to condense that so people can get it faster. Like that guy who no longer had the addiction for gambling.
Right. Yeah, because in today's fast-paced world, it's like you just can't hit the easy button, right? But you got to do it in little chunks because everyone's so busy, right? Even though we all have 24 hours a day, guys. So, if you sleep and 10 hours a night, I mean, we still have a big chunk of time. That's how we want to prioritize that time, right?
Right.
We can do that to learn, to improve our mindset, our financials, situation in life, our health and just overall wellness, I think, So with that being said, Daron, thank you. I mean, this has been an amazing episode. I can't wait. And you guys got to visit DaronPowers.com, DaronPowers.com. I'll put all that in the description. So
you're good.
What's that?
You're good. I
mean,
you remembered how I spelled it. More importantly, this was a lot of fun.
He has it on his book. No, I made sure because it is spelled very differently than other Darons.
Yes.
So,
but I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
You definitely brought out some things in me that I've done other podcasts before, but never felt this simpatico with you. You're a great interviewer. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know really what the hell I'm doing, Daron, but I must be working. You guys, go to YouTube. Go to subscribe to the Imagine Better podcast channel. Hit that notification button. Share and like and comment. Get this message out there. There are a lot of people that need resources and guidance, like my new friend Daron Powers here. Reach out if you have questions. Drop us comments. But you guys, remember, share this content. This is how I keep saying we all the time, I grow this show. It's getting this message out in front of people. We want to help people become more aware of mental wellness, help them on their personal journeys, and definitely transformational change and taking their life to new levels that they never thought they could ever imagine. So help them imagine better. You guys, love you guys. Have a great day. Daron, that is the conclusion of our episode, brother.
Thank you, my friend.